Is Unbound Saga a hidden gem? That's a good question, and I'm going to try to answer it. This 2.5D beat-em-up was only released digitally on the Xbox 360 Arcade and the PlayStation Portable, where the stores have been shut down, but thankfully, it's backwards compatible, making Xbox consoles the only legitimate way to acquire this game in 2025. Where to begin with my review, I reckon the story is as good of a place as any. You play as a guy named Rick, a character who's aware that he's a comic book character, and the game and cutscenes are laid out like a comic book, in panels. But anyways, he's sick of being in comics, with quote, the maker, pulling the strings and putting him in dangerous combat and dreary situations over and over again, while he just wants to be a veterinarian. But in this current world, he's a bouncer at a bar, in a dreary city of decay, when one day, a girl named Lori comes into his life and says that she knows a way out to greener pastures. So the two battle their way through various levels in an attempt to leave the city, before deciding to try to find and defeat the Maker, and with time they come face to face with the closest thing possible, a self-insert character who explains that there is no escape, and that Lori knew the truth all along and was just bait to bring Rick and the self-insert face to face to tell Rick that he's actually in a video game, not a comic book, and that he'll forget everything when the mysterious player decides to start a new game. A very creative and humorous story in my opinion, with an ending I wasn't quite expecting, along with a lot of various jokes and funny moments along the way. Not anything super hilarious, but definitely entertaining. Alright, story out of the way, let's discuss combat. Now, I haven't played a ton of beat-em-ups in my life, and Unbound Saga kinda falls in the middle, I guess. It's not great, or bad, kinda just the higher end of decent. I played on normal difficulty, and it could get boring after a couple levels. A lot of button mashing at times, but achievements incentivize not just mashing the kick button a million times, with achievements like KO 100 enemies by throwing them against the panel walls, or KO 50 enemies with thrown objects, which helped mix things up a bit. Now that being said, you can unlock combos in the upgrade menus using upgrade tokens, but as Darwin Watterson once said,
"You can win this by the power of button mashing!"
So yeah, I did a fair amount of button mashing and handled myself fine. Now that being said, you can play as both characters on solo, using the left bumper to switch between Rick and Lori, who both look great by design. Rick is a bit more juggernautish, as he moves slowly, has more health, and stronger attacks, while Lori is more nimble, but has weaker attacks and less health. I usually played as Rick for most encounters, but often switched to Lori in boss fights, as she can heal herself, but Rick cannot. A bit more about their individual fighting styles. Rick cannot jump, while Lori can, but she's incapable of picking up items or grappling enemies, while Rick can do sick clotheslines and do a backbreaker move, kinda like Bane in Batman, and he can also throw items, which is surprisingly hard as aiming can actually be a tad bit difficult. Meanwhile, Lori can hop into shadow zones scattered around the levels, which make her invisible. Now I mentioned that Lori can heal herself, which is true, but this requires a skill unlock, and after purchasing it, you can press RB and B simultaneously to heal up. Rick can heal also, but his is harder and also locked behind a skill. What he can do is grab an enemy, pressing X I think, and then hold RT to squeeze the life out of them, which honestly just looks wrong, and another enemy can hit Rick and interrupt the process. Now that being said, health drops sometimes are dropped by fallen foes, which heal both characters. Another thing I want to mention is the stamina meter. Yes, a beat 'em up with a stamina meter. It's about what it sounds like. Performing attacks drain your energy, with the only way to restore it being getting random energy drops, or skills to make it regenerate, which I maxed out ASAP, making it so that you don't really need to worry about running out of breath. I keep talking about skills. How about a deep dive into them? Both characters have their own set of 5 skill trees, with each tree having various amounts of skills, and each skill requires 1 skill token to unlock it, and 3 to max a skill out, and tokens are found scattered around the game and dropped by bosses, who usually drop 3. Oh yeah, bosses. Usually pretty enjoyable, and I think every level had one, although I can't say I have a favorite boss, as they all felt about the same except for the final boss, who had the most health of all bosses, and a friendly NPC aided you in battle. There was a decent amount of normal enemy variety though, and you fought gangs, bears, some leopard man hybrid, etc. Like I said earlier, I played the game on normal, which gave you 3 lives to finish a level with, but I never ran out, and the easy difficulty, which I played with my wife, granted you 5 lives, I think. I reckon that largely wraps up the story mode, although I should note that co-op is an option for those with another player. I managed to convince my wife to play 1 level with me, and 2 achievements are locked behind the co-op mode, so you'll need an additional player if you wish to 100% this game. Apart from the story mode, there is a survival mode, which I played twice, and it's about what you would expect. An arena where you survive as long as possible against enemies who grow in strength and number, and there's an achievement for reaching 75,000 points in a single survival game, which is actually really easy, at least when you played as Lori. And speaking of achievements, this game actually has 2 really cool avatar items from the awards that you can unlock. A t-shirt, earned for completing a single level, and a stack of comic books, earned for completing the main story. A perk of playing this on original hardware versus backwards compatibility. Man, it's always so cool finding games with Avatar awards, especially now with the 360 store closed. This is now the only legitimate way to unlock new items. But back to the game. I don't have any major complaints, although like I said earlier, it could be kinda difficult to accurately throw items, and I did manage to lose track of where I was a couple times in really heated battles with a lot of foes. So maybe the game could have benefited from having an arrow point at you from above if there were a lot of enemies present, as I've seen some beat-em-ups do. Performance-wise, this title ran well, and I do not recall any hiccups whatsoever. Graphically, I liked the comic book art style, and the soundtrack was really good, although for some reason the sound effects would just skyrocket in volume when there was an objective to destroy a power generator. You'd just be chilling, and then your speaker would erupt with loud noise, and I'd mute the game ASAP before my neighbors came pounding on my door. Not really sure why, but power generators were just louder than anything else in this title, but at least the voice actors were good. In conclusion, this title took me probably about 2-ish hours to finish the main story, plus a half hour on the survival mode and a co-op level. And would I call it a hidden gem? Sure, I guess. It's not a great beat-em-up like, say, Charlie Murder, but it was enjoyable, with a lot of personality, and it's clear a good amount of passion went into this title. But sadly it appears not many people have played Unbound Saga, as there are only about 37,000 players registered in the leaderboards, and since this was a digital-only game, we can reasonably assume people without internet never played it, meaning less than 40,000 Xbox users ever gave it a spin. But to be fair, I think its $10 price tag is a hair steep, which is the same price as 2 pre-inflation Little Caesars Hot and Ready's. Anyways, my final score for this title is an 8 out of 10 by my grade scale. Not something to play all day, but worth a spin if it's ever on sale, no doubt. Some similar games you might like if you enjoyed Unbound Saga would be Charlie Murder, or TMNT Arcade Wrath of the Mutants, both of which I have reviewed, links in the end cards. A final side note for my review is that the PSP version has a different game cover, and both the Xbox and PSP covers are just low quality for some unexplained reason. Like, this is the official cover art for the 360 version, straight off the Xbox store. Not sure why this was a thing, but it is. Anyways, that's everything from me for today. I hope someone enjoyed my video, and thanks for watching. For anyone new here, I mostly play, review, and discuss zombie and horror games, with sometimes other topics like today, so feel free to go check out some of my other content if that maybe sounds interesting. Hope everyone has a great day. Always remember that Jesus loves you all very much. Peace.